Okay, thank you very much for everyone coming. Thank you for inviting me to the Pathways Pledge. And a big thank you to all my panel members who have rocked up today. So we've got a really fast-paced session, so you won't be bored. So let me just kick off. I just want to start off with just a little bit background about women's entrepreneurship. I'm not going to overload you with stats. It's literally a quick 5 or 6 minutes, and then we can start and introduce you to all the panel members, and they'll come up and they'll give you 5 minutes of who they are, what they do, and their interests in women's entrepreneurship. And we've got entrepreneurs in third sector organisations, so it's a mix of a panel. So thank you, Fiona, for my introduction, and I have a new blouse on. Just throw that in there. So Fiona introduced the Pathways Pledge, which we've been committed to. Strathclyde were one of the organisations. And as you mentioned, we've committed to the Pathways Forward programme, which was a report published by Anna Stewart and Matt Logan. And I'm not trying to show off, but I helped write the report in terms of I was part of the panel that advised and helped and supported. And given my previous report for the Scottish Government and Sarah Carter's, our reports were two of the reports which were seminal to Anna's work as well in terms of taking forward the 50 million that was announced, given all the evidence that what women's entrepreneurship in Scotland looks like in the landscape of the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the challenges that women entrepreneurs face. So I think Scotland is a great place to start a business. No doubt about it. We have such a great entrepreneurial ecosystem. We have got great agencies. We've got Business Gateway. We've got smaller agencies. We've got lots of pockets of individuals and organisations that do a lot. So I'm not going to go over all of these stats, but you can see where we are. We've got, I've collated some key stats. As of 2020, 150,000 women in Scotland were engaged in early startup. We've got 8.6% of working age women in Scotland were actively involved in starting up or setting up or running a business. We've got all these stats which show that we're actually doing well. And all these studies, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, Gender Index study, my own research, Sarah Carter's work, Scottish Government's work, Anna Stewart's work. I think that shows you we are developing a good landscape for women. But there are reasons to say that we aren't doing as well as the rest of the UK. Okay, so for example, I've got some stats written here. In 2020, it's one of our latest figures that are concrete. This is not an educated guess. So the latest figure we've got here is 2022. 2,000 women-led startups started in that year compared to 6,000 men. Okay, so 2,000 versus 6,000. It doesn't look good in terms of the majority of Scotland's population is women. Okay, 13.6 women that's a very small percentage. That's the only, nearly 14% are fast growth women-led. Okay, so again, that's a tiny number compared to what we see in Scotland. When we talk about how many of those women are involved in exporting, 10%. Okay, so 10% overall are women-led organisations, SMEs. And given that figure, we're the lowest in the UK. Scotland is the lowest when it comes to exporting from female-led organisations. And one of the biggest flaws in our economy or our investors or the government or who we want to blame, it's not a blame game, but ultimately where it lies. Startups founded by women, only 2% are given capital investment. Okay, so that's a tiny amount in Scotland. So you can see that although we're doing fantastic, if you take away these figures, what's behind the scenes? Behind the scenes are that we're the lowest in terms of when it comes to women exporting in the UK. We're below 20% in terms of how fast they're growing and setting up. And that figure hasn't really changed over the years. I started my PhD, I graduated in 2013. And Scotland has never been above the 30% in terms of the share of women-led businesses. Okay, so that something needs to change. Okay, so with Anna's report, there has been huge impacts being made, especially with the £50 million that's been recently, 2 years ago, announced by government that would go towards women's enterprise in Scotland. Okay, so this is what we see. So I did a Google search. I put in women entrepreneurs in Scotland, and this is what I got. The first 5 or 6 pictures were women, and this was the picture that kept coming up, reoccurring. Can anybody tell me what's wrong with this picture? I mean, great, this is great. These are all Scottish women entrepreneurs who have done fantastic and are very successful, and we know their faces. But what's wrong with the picture? They've got no issues about walking into a bank. Yeah, so, which is great, but that's not actually what the SME landscape of Scotland's made up of when we look at women. This is not the dominant face of women entrepreneurs in Scotland. This is a dominant face of women entrepreneurs in Scotland. They're different colours, they're different backgrounds, they've got different socio-economic, demographics. It's varied, okay? And their businesses are everything from the service to high tech to pharmaceutical. So it's huge, the diversity of what we see in Scotland, okay? But what we usually see is this, okay? We need to concentrate on the diversity of women entrepreneurs in Scotland. Now, given that, there's 2 groups I just want to highlight. I mean, there's so many groups that we could talk about, but 2 that, one, I'm passionate about, and 2, the government are looking to invest in, okay? One group is those who have got backgrounds of convictions, who have been convicted and through the criminal justice system, and 2, who are domestic abuse survivors who have come out the other end, okay? So these numbers in Scotland are huge if we compare them with with the rest of the UK and Europe. So for example, if we look at domestic abuse victims, or I should say, when we're talking about domestic abuse, we want those are survivors who are out the relationship, because there's no point in it's, safeguarding issues, etc. But what we look at is, if we look at these 2 groups, and this is just an example, remember, over 65,000 incidents are reported to Police Scotland last year, okay? What the chief statistician said, this is the tip of the iceberg. Absolute tip of the iceberg. These are the only ones that are reported. 1 in 5 that's 1 in 5 that they think. It could be as high as 1 in 8, okay? So again, we have no idea. But these are women who require a way into economic independence and social reintegration, okay? The other group is women with criminal backgrounds, or that have been through the criminal justice system. And funnily enough, well, not funnily enough, no, that's not the right word. Scotland being such a small country, we have the second highest, largest female population in prison in Northern Europe, okay? And that's growing as the years go on, okay? And I've just been given the 2-minute finger, so I'm going to chop. My challenges that in this research, these challenges are never changing. So it doesn't matter what background you come from, what type of women entrepreneur you are. What they're saying is they're facing the same challenges: networking, confidence, access to finance, mentoring and caring responsibilities. These are barriers that prevent them from starting up or growing a business, okay? And that doesn't matter what kind of background you come from. So these are some of the ways you can address the challenges, okay? Building a supportive regulatory framework for women. So it's not just about equality, it's about equity. Women have different environments in how they build and start a business, okay? Fostering a gender-sensitive entrepreneurship culture. It's not a tick box for agencies or government, okay? Strengthening the design and delivery of women's entrepreneurship support. I've yet to come across any agency in Scotland that helps and incorporates childcare within their support system, okay, or family policies. Building entrepreneurship skills for women. A lot of it is access to finance. A lot of it is IT, digital-based skills that they lack. Facilitating women's entrepreneurs access to financial capital. Again, lack of access to finance, a huge impact for women, even starting up with seed funding, for example. And the networks for women, okay? They want to be run at grassroots level. I'm going to flag this up, and I'm happy to share my slides afterwards. And here I've put in some of the ways that in Scotland in particular can help women. It's simple things that do require government cost and government commitment, but it also requires individual and agency commitment. Quicker funding routes, access to funding, Kickstarter, seed funding, new sources of capital. And this is working hand in hand with other agencies, digital centres, coaching and mentoring champions based at grassroots level, and offering childcare options within the social infrastructure that already exists. Okay, so what we're doing is, what I'm asking in my recommendations to government is not reinventing the wheel. What we're saying, and it's not adding a tick box, what we're asking is to be considered to be part of the holistic advice and support that's already out there. Okay. And I've given you an example how these can be met. It could be as simple as building a resource pack, simplifying the entrepreneurial system. I don't know if any of you have looked at what's out there for Scotland. Does anybody know how many agencies cater for people starting up a business and what types? There's thousands. Okay, producing a simple toolkit, establishing women's business centre hubs. And when I talk about establishing centres, it's not bricks and mortar or new buildings. What I'm looking at is focusing on libraries, schools, community centres, areas where government doesn't need to fund. These are already existing, and these are where women go to more. You know, I don't know of any women that I've worked with in the last 2 years that would walk into a university to Inspire and go, I need to start up a business. Oh, I'll just go to the bank. But because they don't have the confidence, and they need the initial grassroots support and advice before they can get to the next level of walking into Inspire or going into a bank, etc. And I think it's key I can give you all the stats of X amount of women started a business, the X amount of would come into the economy. I can give you all that. But actually, it's not just about the financial element, it's about the impact. If we address a lack of resources, the family-friendly policies, education, build communities, and empower and build confidence, these are SDGs that we would be addressing. Okay? And it's, I'm not saying you'd hit them all, but this economic independence and social reintegration for them would definitely hit some of those SDGs. Okay? So I'm going to stop there. I feel as if I've really rushed through it. So my apologies. I hope you've kind of got the gist of it. And if anybody is really interested, I'm more than happy to send out information, have one-to-ones, introduce it to the panel members. But I'm going to hand over to the first panel member, Karen, who will come up, and then we'll just whiz through everybody if that's okay. So Karen.
Hi everyone, my name's Karen McFadden, so I'm the founder of Money Insights, and Noreen's kind of teed me up really well because my world is about sharing insights around money, particularly about where to find it, how to make it, when to save it, how to maximise it, because these are the questions that every startup and every scaling SME will be asking. My personal journey is, about 5 years ago, I became self-employed. I was in sales. I sold tax services. So my job entailed going into businesses and saying, by the way, if you do XYZ activity, you are entitled to this tax break. So the customers were obviously very happy. Accountants were happy because this was an additional enhancement to their services, and everyone made money. But it dawned on me that that was just one element of tax initiatives that businesses were missing out on. What else were they missing out on? And so I became self-employed, and I had the opportunity to do the same job. So I would continue bringing clients to this tax partner, but instead of being employed, I got a cut. So that was my first taste of shared commission, right? And I'd done that for 5 years. And as I was going out to businesses talking about these tax initiatives, people were saying to me, oh, Karen, you should talk about this as well, because that will be really useful for them. So grants and R&D. And then when I was seeing commercial property owners, people would say, oh, you should tell them about business rates appeals. Oh, and you should talk to them about energy reductions that they can get. And so I realised that there were so many opportunities that businesses were missing out on, and that's where I decided to create Money Insights. So I launched this in December, and my personal journey that I'm at now is I'm looking to build or raise £30,000 to start building my MVP called Mimi. So Mimi is the Money Insight Matchmaking Initiative, because we are all about matching people to financial opportunities. We're kind of trying to do what Tinder does for romance, but for business finance. So that's what we're working on. But the things that I've embraced, because I was so new to this space, the things that I've done was I decided, right, I have my idea, but I've got no idea how to put it into actual concept and principle out there. So I started looking, and I joined a course also through Pathways. I'm sure it was Inspirant they done the Women Can Grow course, and it was a 9-week program. Brilliant. Went on that, learned how to really map my idea out, and I won their best pitch competition. So I won £500 at the end. I invested that £500 into a business coach. She then helped me figure out, how do I go out there and find members? How do I start an early adopters trial? I'm now up to just under 60 members. They pay about £10 a month to be part of this early adopters trial. And what they get is money insights sent to them every month. Also, I decided I have to get out there. So I went on the Hunter and Hockey podcast. They do a business show on Go Radio. I also started speaking at events to educate companies. Look, I get this is difficult to find these money answers. I get that it's hard to know where to look, what programs are available. So I went to talk about what I can offer them. And I also applied for Scottish Edge. I was a first-time applicant and I got through to the semi-finals, which was pretty good considering not most first-timers even see it past the application gates. So I learned a lot from doing that application. I'm also, with the 30k that I'm looking for right now, I am raising half of it personally. So I've got savings and a lovely mother who is helping put some money towards it. And I realised I could take this money and go to Scottish Enterprise and have them match fund it. Again, something I was completely unaware of until my business gateway advisor told me. I'm also part of the Tech Scaler program, which encourages women to get involved in tech products and businesses, and they also have a connection to Scottish Enterprise to ensure that I get this match funding. So I'm just, I'm learning the same as yourselves. I'm obviously a diverse bunch in the room. I don't know what stage you're all at, but all of the money insights I'm learning and the money programs and resources and tools I'm embracing to build myself, I'm sharing with my members. And I'm helping them get access to money that they just would have missed out had they not been part of Money Insights. So yeah, I'm basically here today to talk to you a wee bit about it and just share my journey. And I'm 5 months in this kind of solopreneur roller coaster ride. But I'm going to have a vision of where I want to go with it, how I want to build it. And by being part of Women Can Grow, Tech Scaler, all the events that I'm doing, it's all kind of been little baby steps. And my husband always says that brick by brick, the castle shall be built. So that's what I'm working on. Thanks very much.
Morning, everybody. My name's Christy Cleland. I'm a unit manager with the prison service, and I'm currently working in Lilia's community custody unit in Maryhill. So the prison service a number of years ago committed to reviewing the way we imprison women, which resulted in Cotton Vale being replaced by HMP Stirling, and 2 community custody units being opened up, one in Dundee and one in Maryhill. And my role as the unit manager there is to predominantly bring in a range of services and supports for the women in a very trauma-informed way to help them integrate back into the community and hopefully within their local communities. We obviously are dealing with a number of issues, I suppose, with some of the women that come into contact with Lilias. I would say that the majority have either suffered a singular traumatic event or a number of traumatic events, which has led on to substance use, for example, a lack of self-esteem, or they've been involved in or they've been the subject of domestic violence. So that kind of gives you an idea of the women that we're actually looking at here. So I was introduced to Noreen, who wanted to deliver an entrepreneurship program in Lilias with the women. And it was a real success. There were barriers to that, and there were a couple of things I can touch on, but it was a huge success. And what it kind of showed me was that the women, they love arts and crafts, for example, and that the notion of being entrepreneurs in one shape or another, was very real. Whether they had the capacity to go on and actually become entrepreneurs was a different story, but it was about providing them with the opportunity in a range of areas to think about what entrepreneurship might mean to them. So when Noreen showed the picture of Michelle Moan on the screen, it couldn't be further from that. We're talking about women that maybe don't have the capacity or don't have the pleasure of being able to think about a business opportunity or a side hustle, but nonetheless, they've still got aspirations. And for us, it was about tapping into that, the enthusiasm, and kind of shaking off some of this the stigma that they actually place on themselves as well. So it was a real eye opener for some of the women. I suppose we've touched on some of the barriers there as well. It's about financial independence. It's about still being involved in coercive relationships that diminish the opportunity to go and strive for their own independence. But nonetheless, I think from a prison perspective, there are a number of women that would love the opportunity to expand or think about themselves in a new and different way. And if I, as the unit manager, can see that women are feeling empowered and are maybe loving themselves a little bit more and have the capacity to have a little bit more confidence or be more assured in themselves, I think that's really, really important. So resources to maybe tap into that, maybe through yourselves, would be an ideal opportunity for these women to maybe think about a different path in their lives when they leave Lilius, rather than being stuck in the norm that they're usually faced with.
Morning, everybody. I'm Claire Saunders. I am a social work team leader based at the Tomorrow's Women project in the Gorbals in Glasgow. So Tomorrow's Women was set up 2013, 2014, I think. It was on the back of the Women's Commission on Women's Offending and Women Offenders that was completed by the Scottish Government, to look at the reasons why women offend. And it was noted that in Scotland we were failing women who were involved in the justice system. All of our services were very much based around the needs of men, and it was noted that we really needed to do something different to support women in the justice system and to try and support women to avoid reoffending and kind of move on with their lives. I think what was clear that came out was the levels of trauma that women have experienced when they've been involved in the justice system. It was noted that, absolutely men have experienced trauma who are involved in justice. But what was noted to be different was the layering of trauma that women experience, and that is trauma experienced in childhood, trauma experienced in adolescence, and also trauma experienced in adult life. And routinely, the trauma was caused by the very people that were meant to love the women and meant to care for them. So that added layer of trauma in itself. So Tomorrow's Women was established to look at things differently and to avoid that, the recurrent sort of revolving door syndrome that so many people in the justice system experience. So Tomorrow's Women is now made up of myself, team leader, 3 social workers, 4 social care workers, and 2 senior mental health practitioners. The aim is to support women through one-to-one support, but also through group work. So that's something that's delivered by the social care workers. We have a variety of groups running, which are cooking, arts and crafts, therapeutic arts and crafts, and well-being, fitness, and access to gym and things like that. We also have 2 volunteers that work with us who have come through the service. So those volunteers have, experienced contact with the justice system and have then gone on to, utilise our programme to go through it and to come out the other side and actually support our women, which has been huge. That it really bridges the gap between what our women are experiencing and, that big gap between them and the professionals. So it really helps us bridge that gap and to try and access the women and support them. Also part of what we provide, sorry, I've not really gone into the difficulties that the women experience, but I've mentioned trauma, and that's clear, and of what, many of Christie's women in the Lilius will also have experienced. There's a lot around addiction issues, and that can be a way of the women trying to cope with what they've experienced. Domestic abuse is ever prevalent, and much of our work is relates to kind of protecting the women as much as we can and safety plan alongside with them.
as a result of all of that, there's a lot of disempowerment for our women and a huge lack of confidence, but also a huge skill set in terms of the creativity and the resilience. And because our women are survivors and they have learned to be resourceful and learned to be resilient because they've had to be. So and we have kind of identified that because of that skill set, because of the creativity amongst our women, we established the Makers Market. So that was initially run as a kind of Christmas event. We've got plans to kind of go down the route of world domination. Not quite got there yet, but we're only in year 3. So Makers Market is a focus on what the skill set is of the women, and it's run by the women for the women. So it comes from them and what they want to make, how they are going to make a profit from that. So looking at the products, looking at how much they cost, and looking at how they can, make the most out of that. So we've made things like soap, candles, jewelry, bags, a variety of things that are then we've only tapped into the sort of social work market. So that we've gone round to kind of social work offices and sold the items for a profit, which then goes back into the Women's Independent Fund. So the women then make a decision about how they want to spend their profit, whether that's for more resources, and or whether they want to use that for further self-development, like courses or laptops or things like that that can support them ultimately to move on with their lives.
So hi, I'm Claire Daly and I'm founder and CEO of Dynamigo. So Dynamigo is your dynamic learning friend. And basically we are a digital and physical products to support and identify the zone of proximal development, which is basically your potential. So where you are now to where we want you to be. So assessments and other tools like that at the moment really just look at almost like a snapshot or a Polaroid, and we're much more of a mirror into learning. So in a mirror, you can see the reflection of the person, all the things that are around about them, but also the changes that can happen and that can occur. So a bit about me, my journey to entrepreneurship hasn't been very straightforward. As an undergrad, I worked in psychiatric hospitals. I was a primary teacher for a few years and was a practice-based psychologist for a couple of decades. I started when I was 5. So throughout this, I came to Strathclyde to teach educational psychologists in 2018 and I now run the doctoral programme. And I used to think I've kind of fallen into Strathclyde Inspire because it was the end of the road, end of my corridor where my office is. But actually, all my friends and colleagues say, no, you've always been like that. You're always saying, but why are we doing it like this? Can't we make it better? Surely there's another way. I'm just going to try. So no matter what job I've had or career that I've been in, that's always been my focus. So when I came to Inspire, they'd say, well, great, that's a great idea, and put me through panels that also agreed that what I was trying to do would make a difference, which really boosted my confidence. The funding has been great. We've really bootstrapped, and we've also got some revenue, so we've been paid pilots to test out our ideas, and I think that people are paying for it makes it even more clear that what we're doing is great. And we've done trials across a few different continents now as well. So basically, my own journey has probably inspired me to become an ambassador for Strathclyde Inspire because I've always been in humanities, and in humanities is predominantly women. And women don't tend to go into entrepreneurship because you always feel as if we should be doing things for the greater good. We want to help people, and commercialisation is a dirty word. So I'm trying to support that and get more from humanities and women to come into the Inspire corridor as well. And I was just having a think actually when Noreen had put up about the women in Scotland that are all blonde. And I can say that when I started, I was a brunette. And the reason why I'm blonde is to hide the grey hair that entrepreneurship has given me. So if any of you are in the university and would like a chat or a coffee about your own journey and how we can maybe support it, then please let me know. Okay, so thank you very much. It's my fantastic panel. I really hope that shows you the diverse nature of women entrepreneurs in Scotland. I mean, I'm hoping that everybody becomes a Claire or a Karen, through our support. And I think Inspire do such great things. that you could lend yourselves to any one of the panel speakers?
So my question to all the panel, or different ones, is I'm always really pleased when I see lots of these groups that are addressing specific problems to support women, or solutions anyway, but how do we approach the more societal side of this, that why we're making it all about women, because it's a societal challenge towards women, but equally how can we collectively come together as these smaller groups to create a wider collective impact that actually has more outcome-based solutions that can be heard widely?
And I suppose from my perspective in the prison service, you know, as part of the criminal justice system, the kind of networks and the partnerships are already in place. So I kind of alluded to the fact that the creation of Lilius and Bella have been as a result of kind of Scottish Government consultation via the Angelini report, via like experts within the criminal justice system to bring together, you know, an approach, if you like, that is hopefully going to transform the lives of the women that are in custody. So Claire and I do have a working relationship at the moment. So my role really, I suppose, is to incorporate as many agencies, partners, support services so that we are making a bigger impact for the women. And we've only been open a couple of years at Lilius, so there's still ample opportunity. But you know, my door is always open to new connections and new partnerships. So yeah, anything that can bring together, you know, and improve the outcomes for these women is absolutely the forefront of my work. But we have connections with Scottish Government, and it's them that ultimately will, I suppose, decide what the next steps are for women in custody.
I could probably answer also. I mean, so I've found that in business, whether it's a charity, CIC, limited company, solo trader, a lot of growth comes down to knowledge and it comes down to money. And where do you find that? And I feel like what I'm trying to do with my idea, with Money Insights, is ultimately saying, look, everyone has their ideas. And like I said, it could be across a charity, it could be across a community project, you know, prison service, anything. But in order to really execute that idea, you do need to have the knowledge of how to put that together in some sort of business plan, business growth plan, but then you also need the funds to back it up. And that's where I'm trying to kind of build something to automatically get these funds and these knowledge pieces to my colleagues here. Yep. Don't know if that kind of answers a bit, but that's how I see us all coming together.
Just to add to your points as well, though, I feel that we shouldn't be like, it's like the melting pot in the salad bowl, isn't it? It's like at the minute we're still the salad bowl, that we're women and there's men and there's money for women and there's money for men, which is a bigger bowl, but we're not really included yet. And I think going forward, I would hope that would be something that we would be focused on more, and there'd be more men in the room.
So as an academic, can I just add to that in terms of women have different environments. So the way I see it, it's not all that we're special or we require special treatment. It's about equity in terms of actually our environments are so different. Our circumstances are so different. We require different types of funding, different policies, not add-ons, not tick boxes. And so far, what we usually see, and if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, what we see is that government is adding tick boxes, and that's slowly changing, and hopefully working with the diverse number of women in Scotland, that will slowly change, but it still is the salad bowl and the melting pot, and that's going to take generations for it to even, I don't even know what other example to use, but that was a good one. But you know what I'm saying. Sorry, there's another question.
So hi, the question that I was wondering is, what type of word do you use to describe what you do? Do you describe it as being self-employed, being an entrepreneur, or being a women entrepreneur? And kind of what's your thinking behind the word that you decide to use?
Sure. So I was just saying thank you very much for the question, and it's something I've actually been thinking a lot about myself recently, because I've been in sales my entire career, so about 12, 13 years, and truth be told, I've never been in a situation where I've felt less than my male counterparts. I've always been treated with respect. I've always been equal to them in terms of pay, commission structures. As long as I bring in what they're bringing in, then we're the same. So I've never really considered myself at a downfall because I've been a female in a business sales orientated space. So when I came up with my my self-employed journey, when I began that, again, it was on the back of what I'd learned from my sales career, and this company gave me the opportunity to do it. And now that I'm running my money insights, I pitch that as I'm an entrepreneur, whether you're male, female, black, white, tall, thin, round, purple. Entrepreneurship is really just taking your idea and growing it as big as you possibly can. So that's kind of where I would put myself at the moment. Obviously, I appreciate when it's tagged female funding, well, you're going to ride any wave that comes to you when you're at the start of your journey. And I think certainly, as Noreen was saying, it's more circumstantial. So, for example, I was saying to Steph there recently, I'm actually planning on starting a family. And I'm now in a position where I'm thinking, right, 9 months from now, what do I do when I have to take time off my business? Because my husband won't need to do that, and he's a male. So when I think of female funding, I'm thinking of situations like that where how can we access money so that we can set ourselves up correctly for the next phases of our lives. And again, I put that just down to entrepreneurship again and what I can take advantage of as a woman.
I'd totally echo what you're saying. And it's funny, I think when you're starting out on anything, you spend so much time working out what your title is, like what you want to be called, and really you can call yourself anything. And I think being a researcher at heart, I've kind of played about with my tagline in LinkedIn to see who connects with me at different points. And actually at the moment it just says the first thing is mum. Because at the minute I've got teenage kids that are going through exams and that's my priority, but actually all links in because you have to be in a busy household, you're doing all these things. But I actually agree with I don't tend to say I'm a female founder ever, because I think it's kind of obvious. And the second thing is, as much as I really believe in the plight for, women's pathways, and I'm so delighted that other people are taking up that mantle, that I don't have time to do that because I'm really trying to focus on my business. And men don't have to do that. They don't have to think about championing men's stuff because they're just focused on their business. So I think while it's really important and I'm so delighted others are doing that, I can't at the minute because I'm too focused on what I'm doing. So I would probably just say entrepreneur.
Katie's asked, what are the societal benefits or the impacts of the women involved in entrepreneurship, via the SDGs. So one of the things that I've seen is, and research shows, and obviously you guys will be able to answer much better than me, is what we're not looking through my work. I'm not looking to have women set up scale-ups, tech. I'm looking for women, as I think it was Christy that mentioned, side hustles. And so all of these women and other women, not just that fit into these pockets, are usually on benefits or low-paid jobs. Most of the women in Scotland do low-paid service type jobs. Okay, so how do we get them to think other than that? Okay, so what could complement their benefits? What we're saying here is we're not wanting to take away their benefits. We're wanting to supplement their benefits to a degree that, okay, if they start earning a lot, they will then know that they need to declare that because you're allowed to earn X amount before you declare it. A lot of people don't know that. How do we educate them in that? And see that money through that they get for that little bit of economic independence. It might be, Stacey's not here, she deals with Martha's mammies who work alongside Claire. It might be to take their children out. It might be buy a new pair of trainers. It might be to go to date night with their other half. It might be to buy a cooker. It's as simple as that. What we're not looking is, well, every woman that gets entrepreneurial advice or entrepreneurship programs must set up a business. They must do this. They must do that. Again, going back to this tick box, KPI, output mentality, move away from that. Actually, a lot of the women want to earn some money for, like I've just mentioned some of the examples. And if they do well and they do want to build a business, we should have that support in place for them to do that. But it takes a long time. It's not overnight.
I heard that question totally different. I was like up for saying benefits of having women in a company. Are you kidding? Let me tell you. Because the first one is just look at the brass tacks of the stats. Women are bright. Women excel at universities. They do doubly well at boys in school. And yet we're not seen as the brighter ones, which just baffles me. The second thing is that having a nurturer in the team is going to be the person that's going to be able to be the all-rounder, making sure everybody's G'd up and supported and can kind of see it from other angles. And the third one is who's probably going to be buying the stuff that you're selling is likely to be women. So if you're not listening to women and you don't have them as part of your team, then you're missing a trick in terms of sales. That's just 3, but I could go on.
No, I absolutely agree. And I was thinking the way that I picked the question up also was kind of how is what we're doing going to impact, females down the line? And I think when you're selling to a female audience, well, having females on board is absolutely key. But something that I find is a real limitation to females, and I'm starting to now understand this world myself, is, okay, getting back into work as a mother, when it comes, fingers crossed, getting back into that space. What are the complications I'm going to be facing there? How far ahead will technology go, be before I then get back in? And something I find a big issue in society is not, I recently applied for Scottish Edge, and one of the questions was about impact. So basically, wave the magic wand and what impact would you like to give back in the future? And I said, I'd love to have a building where I've got a nursery, a daycare, part of the building, where it's just a perk. That's one of the company perks of working with me, that your children are taken care of and you can come back to work immediately, or you can come back to work when you see fit. Because I just think it's such a barricade getting women back into business. And like you were saying, we're capable of saying things, and at meetings and although women, I admit I overthink, and I don't think it's a bad thing, but we are the ones that scrutinise things. We go through things with fine-tooth combs. We ensure that the path from A to Z actually makes sense.
Well, that's what the research is really clear about. It basically says that, if a woman is starting a business, and that's why they tend to be older, is because they're really sure that they've done the right thing, that they've researched it, they've considered that they're at the stage they're ready. Whereas men tend to jump in earlier because, and confidence is an amazing thing, and I'm not taking that away from that. But I think that's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. So I do think that kind of having women back to work or in work as long as possible, so that they can excel and have that nurturing element around them, having the right team. I think culture as well. I don't know if you've noticed this in your careers, but culture within companies is really amping up now, and really encouraging staff to be open, encouraging fun within working environments, encouraging flexible working contracts to accommodate parents, etc. I think that can only be a good thing for companies to embrace more of. Yeah. I hope they all answered your question.
Just the last, you haven't said anything. Sorry. Do I throw you under the bus? Do you want to say anything before we finish up?
No, I've just been listening and kind of reflecting, particularly on the first question about societal impacts, and I think all that's been covered throughout all the questions and all the feedback.
Yeah.
Because we're thinking about why does it fall on the women to kind of evoke these changes, but we're seeing it in real time right now, and kind of challenging systemic, organisational issues.
Yeah.
So,
Could I maybe just add one
Yes,
more
of
thing?
course.
It was a conversation that you and I are having, Steph. So I was on this Women Can Grow programme, and one of the contestants that were on the programme, she was a holistic therapist. She was a new mum, and her job was basically taking her baby to the classes with her, with other mums and babies, and just giving them a safe space to, be there, relax, bond, etc. And part of her pitch, which I thought was fantastic, was she said, I want everyone to close their eyes, and I want you to imagine someone you love. Now, imagine helping them, imagine giving them exactly what they need to get to the next step in life. You've held their hand, you've brought them forward, and they're just so appreciative for you. Open your eyes now. Did anyone imagine themselves? And it's a room full of women. And then no one answered, because none of us thought of ourselves. We never put ourselves first. And that was what came out of it. And it really made me realise that women need to be, and I'm saying women because you're talking about this, the impact of being in an environment where we are encouraged to put ourselves first before others, that just doesn't come natural to us. And I think that's what's, that's played a part in men getting ahead faster, because we societally, historically, have just believed that we are here to care for others. In fact, I think it was Jordan Peterson that said, men love things and women love people. And I thought, well, that was interesting. And that's an interesting point, because it really made sense to me. That's it.
I think that's a great note to finish on. Can I just thank the panel one more time? Thank you very much.